Namaste everyone, I'm your co-host Shravani ma'am. Welcome to your favorite learning channel. The topic for today's video is poultry farming part 2. So in part 1 of poultry farming, we had discussed about the overview of poultry farming and we also discussed about the various breeds of poultry, right? So today first, we will be discussing about the difference between the layer and broiler. We already have discussed what is layer and broiler. So, what is layer? Layer is the poultry that is reared for obtaining eggs, whereas broiler is the poultry that are reared for obtaining meat, right? So at first we will be discussing the difference between them, and then we would be looking at the various diseases that are caused in poultry and how to manage those diseases as well as the feed of poultry. Okay. So starting with the difference between layer and broiler, the first parameter to be considered here is the purpose. Okay. So the purpose of layer is to obtain or obtaining eggs, whereas the purpose of rearing broiler is for obtaining meat. Okay. Then the second parameter is shelter. Okay. So layer requires just enough space and lighting. Alright. Whereas broiler requires or they need the conditions, the specific conditions to grow fast. Okay. So the next parameter would be the feed. Okay. So the feed that is required by layer is restricted. It is restricted as well as calculated, whereas the feed required by broiler includes the feed that is rich in proteins, then it should be rich in vitamin A and vitamin K. Okay. Then the fourth parameter is the time period. Okay. So here the layer, it is kept for longer period. It is kept for a longer period as the eggs are produced. When are they produced? They are produced at the age of of 20 weeks. Okay. Whereas what is the time period of broiler? So they are raised up to between 6 and 7 weeks. Okay. So these are some of the key differences between layer and broiler. Okay. So now let's talk about the different diseases that occur in poultry. So we can say that diseases, okay, so different diseases in poultry. Okay, So let's see what are the different and common diseases occurring in poultry. So the poultry fowl suffer from a number of diseases, and these diseases can be caused by viruses, bacteria, fungi, parasites, etc. So generally these birds are affected by diseases such as the most common diseases in poultry. Some of the common diseases are Ranikhet, okay, then Coccidiosis, then fowl pox, and tick fever. Okay, these are some of the common diseases. Now let's talk about or discuss about some of the diseases in detail. First, let's talk about Aspergillosis. Aspergillosis it is caused by fungi. Okay, so this is a fungal disease, that is aspergillosis is a fungal disease. So what are the symptoms of this disease? It leads to the formation of patches on the skin, and this is due to what? It is due to the growth of the molds. As the molds grow on the skin, it leads to the formation or appearance of patches on the skin of fowls. Okay, then the next disease we will talk about is dermatitis. Okay, and it is caused by what? It is caused by virus. So it is a viral disease. Okay, now let's see what are the symptoms of this disease. So it causes blisters, irritation. There is irritation, and also it leads to eruption. On the skin surface. Okay, so these are some of the symptoms of dermatitis, right? Then the next disease that we would discuss here is fowl cholera. So fowl cholera is caused by bacteria. Okay, so it is a bacterial disease. Now let's see what are the symptoms of this disease. If we talk about symptoms, we can say this leads to dehydration. Okay, so dehydration is the most common symptom in case of fowl cholera. Then the next disease is fowl pox, and fowl pox is again caused by virus. Okay, now what are the symptoms of this disease? Symptoms, if we talk about, then it leads to discharge. There is discharge from where? From eyes and nose, and also there is difficulty in okay, so there is difficulty in breathing. Okay, so there is difficulty in breathing and there is development of pox lesions on the feet and on eyelids. Okay, so there is formation of pox lesions on feet and eyelids, and there is also formation of lesions in mouth. Okay, so these are some of the symptoms of fowl pox. Alright. So now that we have discussed about various diseases that commonly occur in poultry or in fowls, we should know how can we prevent the diseases in poultry. Okay, so we will talk about prevention of poultry diseases. Alright. So let's see how can we prevent diseases. So there is requirement of proper cleaning, sanitation and spraying of disinfectants at regular intervals, okay, for the prevention of diseases. This is the primary requirement for preventing diseases. And apart from this, they require appropriate vaccination to prevent the occurrence of infectious diseases and to reduce the loss of poultry during an outbreak of disease. So some of the common preventive measures that can control the occurrence of poultry bird diseases that we will state here is there is requirement of cleaning of poultry farms. Okay, we need to regularly clean the poultry farms. Then there is also requirement of proper sanitation of the farms, that is of the poultry farms. Okay, then there should also be spraying of what is required, spraying of disinfectants at regular intervals is required for preventing diseases. Then there is also need for appropriate vaccination, proper or appropriate vaccination of birds is also very important for preventing the poultry diseases. Okay, so next we will move on and talk about the feed. Okay, so the feed that is required for poultry. So we can say the feed for poultry. So we know that we need food for proper maintenance of our body and to perform all the daily functions. Now let's see what is the feed that is required for poultry. So poultry or domestic fowl, they also require all the essential nutrients in a balanced form. So poultry also require, so the poultry or domestic fowl, they also require all the essential nutrients in which form? In a balanced form. Okay, so the feed for poultry includes, what does this feed include? So it includes mashed cereals like bajra, wheat, rice bran, okay, rice bran, then maize, then groundnut cake. Okay, so these mashed grains are required, or these mashed grains are included as feed for poultry. Now the packaged poultry feed is now available in the market, and this has increased the production of eggs. Then fish meal and meat meal, which are prepared from the wastes of fish processing and meat processing industries respectively, are also used for feed, or are also used to feed poultry. So apart from this, what is used? So we can say that fish meal from the wastes of fish processing, from the waste of fish processing industries, and the meat meal from the wastes of meat processing industries are also used to feed, they are used for what? They are used to feed the poultry. Okay, then a small poultry farm can be sustained on plant and animal waste. It can be maintained even in backyard or house. So many high yielding varieties of poultry have been introduced in our country. So these need less food and they produce more meat and eggs within a short time. So many high yielding. So what are introduced? The high yielding varieties of poultry. So what is their requirement? These have been introduced in our country. So what do they need? They need less food. And they produce more meat and more eggs, and this is done in a shorter time. Okay, so this production happens in a shorter span of time. Alright, so these high yielding varieties lay about 200 eggs annually as compared to 60 to 70 eggs laid by the desi varieties. Okay, so since these varieties consume less food, they are more economical and they reduce the cost of maintenance. Okay, so this is about the feed that is required for poultry. Okay, so now let's quickly revise everything that we have covered today in this section, that is the part 2 of poultry farming. So first we discussed about the difference between layer and broiler. Okay, so the first parameter that we considered was the purpose. So the purpose of layer is to obtain eggs, whereas the purpose of broiler is to obtain meat. Then what is the shelter requirement of these two? So the layer requires enough space and lighting, whereas the broiler needs specific conditions to grow fast. Then what is the feed they require? So the layer has a restricted and calculated feed requirement, whereas broiler requires feed that is rich in proteins, vitamin A and vitamin K. Then what is the time period? So the layer is kept for a longer period as eggs are produced at the age of 20 weeks. Whereas in case of broiler, they are raised up to between 6 and 7 weeks. So these are some of the important differences between layer and broiler. Then we discussed about the various diseases in poultry. So the poultry fowl suffer from a number of diseases, and these diseases can be caused by virus, bacteria, fungi, parasites, etc. So some of the common diseases in poultry are ranikhet, coccidiosis, fowl pox and tick fever. And then we discussed about some of the common diseases in detail. So first disease here we discussed was aspergillosis, which is caused by a fungi, hence it is a fungal disease. The symptoms include formation of patches on skin, and the patches are formed due to the growth of these molds. Okay. Then we discussed about dermatitis, which is caused by virus, hence it is a viral disease. The symptoms include blisters, irritation and eruptions on the skin surface. Then we talked about fowl cholera, which is caused by a bacteria, hence it is a bacterial disease, and the main symptom is dehydration. Then we also discussed about the fowl pox. So it is caused by a virus and it is a viral disease. So the symptoms include discharge from eyes and nose, difficulty in breathing, then there is formation of lesions on feet, eyelid, and also there are formation of lesions in mouth. Okay. Then we discussed about the prevention of poultry diseases, that how we can prevent them. So there is a requirement of cleaning of poultry farms, then proper sanitation is required in poultry farms, spraying of disinfectants at regular intervals is required, then appropriate vaccination of birds is also required. So all these things, or following all these things, help in preventing the diseases that occur in poultry. Okay. Then we discussed about the feed for poultry. So poultry or domesticated fowl, they also require all the essential nutrients in a balanced form. So the feed that poultry require, it includes mashed cereals like bajra, wheat, rice bran, maize and groundnut cake. Okay. So apart from these, packaged poultry feed is now available in market, and this has increased the production of eggs. Then fish meal, that is obtained from the wastes of fish processing industries, as well as the meat meal obtained from the wastes of meat processing industries, can also be used for feeding the poultry. Okay. Then many high-yielding varieties of poultry have now been introduced in our country, and these, what do? They actually need less food and they produce more meat and eggs within a shorter time. And what happens because of this? Since these varieties consume less food, and because of this, they are more economical and they reduce the cost of maintenance. So the high yielding varieties lay about 200 eggs annually as compared to 60 to 70 eggs laid by the desi varieties. Okay. So I hope you all would have got some great insights by watching today's video. Please do not forget to like and share the video. Till then, thank you for watching.